Hey everyone, bienvenido a mi canal. I hope you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to be talking about the realities of learning a new language. I wrote down 5 negatives, 5 positives. Let's talk about it. We're going to start off with the negatives just because I feel like I want to end on a positive note. So the first one is the motivation highs and lows. It is not enough to rely on motivation alone to learn a new language. It's just not possible. Of course, when you start, you're gonna be very motivated. You're gonna be so excited and learning is gonna be really exciting. But the amount of time it takes to learn a new language, it's very likely that your motivation will dip throughout the whole journey. And it's really important to keep going, and sometimes pushing through those lows to engage in the new language, study it, immerse yourself can be really exhausting, and it takes a lot of brain work to grasp a new language, so it can be really draining. Working through those lows is not something that someone's really thinking about when they first start learning a new language. So I feel like that's something, in case you don't know, if you're new to language learning, to look out for and remember why you are learning this language, because if you have a really strong why, then you'll be able to power through the lack of motivation. The next one is frustration of limited knowledge. So I kind of think about it as babies and toddlers, before they can speak or when they're still trying to learn how to speak, they get frustrated, they throw tantrums, and a lot of the time it's because they can't even communicate. And that's why a lot of people suggest teaching your baby's sign language, because then it allows them to communicate in that way. And it's very similar when you're learning a new language. The frustration that happens when you have such limited knowledge and you have so much to say. In your native language, you can talk a storm. You can say how you're feeling, what you're doing, about your day, but then when it comes to learning a new language, your vocabulary is going to be limited, and sometimes it can be very frustrating because you want to be able to express yourself, but you can't. And I feel like it ties in a lot with the next one, which is fear of speaking. So it's funny how when we first want to learn a new language, it's because we want to talk to people, obviously. What's the point of learning a new language if you're not going to speak to people? But then it gets scary to talk to a native speaker. Making mistakes can be embarrassing, sounding stupid can be embarrassing. So it's very common for language learners to hesitate when it comes to speaking to a native speaker. They'll try to hold off speaking for as long as possible because it's intimidating, and because we have such limited knowledge, we don't want to come off as stupid. But everyone's gonna go through this phase. Nobody who knows that you're learning a language is gonna expect you to be perfect, and we know that. I'm not saying anything new. It can be still very intimidating to be open for being wrong and criticism, and not even criticism, correction. That's a better word. I feel like a lot of people go set themselves up to be okay, once I'm perfect in the language is when I will speak to somebody, which is what? You should start speaking as soon as possible. Even if you just learn the basics of a language, you should start getting comfortable with speaking to someone as soon as possible, because one, it will make learning the language go by so much faster. And also, there's no way to be perfect in this language and then decide to speak to someone after, because if you are making mistakes and you don't know, you're just gonna continue to reinforce that, and it'll be harder to break those bad habits, those wrong habits, when there's no one to correct you. So yeah, being afraid of speaking and trying to get over that can be very challenging. Next, oh my god, I hate this one so much, but it's the intermediate plateau. So when you don't know anything in a language, you can only go up from there. So from being a beginner to getting to intermediate is very it's not very easy, but you can see yourself progressing a lot quicker because you only have everything to learn. So once you hit intermediate, then it's very common for people to start to plateau, because then you have less things to learn, and it's when you kind of have to get into the nitty-gritty of things. And I feel like the intermediate plateau has been the bane of my existence, and it's really frustrating, but continuously learning, trying to get over it. But it's a lot easier to go from beginner to intermediate than intermediate to advanced, because at that point you have to try to reinforce the language to make almost more a part of you, not having to translate in your head, be able to express yourself as closely to your native language as possible, which is going to take a lot of baby steps, and you're not going to have a huge progression like you did when you went from beginner to intermediate, because you just have less to learn. So that's something. And then the last negative is trial and error. I watched every language learning creator you can think of to get their tips on how to learn a new language. And I tried so many that I failed at, and I've tried a lot others that I actually decided to stick with, like it helped me. But language learning is just so personal that there's not going to be one size fits all type of thing, because some people might be good at reading and writing but suck at listening and speaking. Some people might be the opposite. So being able to cater your language learning journey, schedule, resources to yourself is very time consuming, lots of trial and error, and you just have to be really open to change and switch things up when they're not working, and evaluate where your attention is needed most. Because something that's very interesting, and I think it's not unique to language learning, is that when you realize you're really good at something, you want to keep doing that thing, because it's like, oh wow, like I'm good, I feel motivated, I'm confident, and like all this stuff. And then we kind of put aside the things that we're bad at because we don't want to have to touch that. We don't want to have to like ruin our upward progression. We don't want to like have to trip and fall or whatever. But like being able to recognize your weak points and then actually put more of your attention there is something that is best to learn sooner than later, rather than continue to reinforce something that you don't even need any more practice on. So yeah, be open to trial and error and find what's best for you. All right, now we're gonna talk about the positives. When I tell you that the positives outweigh the negatives, it really does. The positives heavily outweigh the negatives, so much so that you don't even care about the negatives if you're able to access these positives. So let's start with the first one. It is a deeper understanding for a new culture and its people. A language is so much more than just, it sounds pretty, it's exotic. Like, it's someone's way of life, it's a whole culture, it's how people interact on a day-to-day. Like, it's so much more than just, it sounds nice. And when you are able to unlock that language, you can connect with people so much more, because like, come on, let's be honest. Someone can get to know me better in my native language than any other language that I may learn. And that's the same thing for other people. And when you're able to understand their language, you can understand them. You can understand the culture better. You can understand so many things that you probably wouldn't if it was just translated into your native language. And I don't feel like I understood this until I started learning a new language, how so much gets lost in translation. And if you can read it from its actual source, then you are literally unlocking an entire world that is only accessible to people who speak that language. It's like you're a part of a secret club or something. Yeah, things just hit better. Connections with people hit better. Learning about new culture hit better. Like, it's just really cool. The next thing, it is a confidence boost for sure. And not even a confidence boost in like, I'm not like other girls. It's like a confidence boost and like, I did that. I worked hard. I stuck by it. I was consistent. I failed. I got better and I got to this point. And like, it's so rewarding and it's like, wow, like I can't believe that. Like there's been so many times where I was reading something not in English and I was like, wait a minute, I'm literally reading a different language right now. And that's weird, like in the best way possible, like me. Especially when you're in the United States where that's not something people do. It's not a common hobby where people are just gonna pick up a new language. Like, I think it's so cool when people are able to do that. And I don't know, I just feel like it makes me more confident in myself and my abilities, and it can be used in other ways, like in anything, regardless of language learning. If I don't think I can do something, I'm like, wait, but I did that. And that's something to be proud of. Not a lot of people can say that. All right, the next one of my favorites is that you get a new way of thinking and being. Let's just start with the thinking part. When you learn a new language, you see how language can affect the way you think. So let me give you some examples. So in English, when we think of time, we think of length of time, like a measurement, a distance of time. But in Spanish, time is measured as if it's filling a container. Like, how much time has filled. Similarly to age, like I'll say I am 23 years old. It's like who I am. It's a characteristic of me. But in Spanish, it's like I have 23 years. Like it's something that I've gained, if that makes sense. So it's very interesting when you learn new languages, how you can see how people think of things differently. And it's so good. So you can see things in different perspectives. You are like, I guess, seeing the world in different ways that I don't feel like people who don't speak another language can really relate to. Never once have I thought of time in any other way besides linear until I learned it could be different ways, you know, and I apply that to so many aspects in life. And then with new way of being, there's this quote, I'm gonna read it off, but it says, tener otro idioma es poseer una segunda alma. And that pretty much means to learn a new language, to have a new language, is to possess a second soul. And some people say that like when you learn a different language, your personality can also shift. And does that mean that you're fake? No, it just means that you're interacting with this language different than you do in your native language. And it's kind of cool. I don't know, like I'm down. So the next one is gratitude for the age of technology. Kind of random, but like you'll get what I mean. So back in the day, you had to be around people who spoke the target language you're trying to learn, or be in a country that spoke the target language you're trying to learn. And thankfully, we live in an age where I can learn a new language from the comfort of my bed. I can talk to natives on the comfort of my bed. I can text, call, FaceTime natives. I can learn from YouTube videos, take classes, have tutors. Like there's so many ways that now you can learn a language without leaving your bed. Like it just makes me so grateful that like I'm living in this time where I have that type of accessibility to another language. And I don't know, it just makes things cool. And whenever I'm like, oh, this is so hard or whatever, I'm like, well, I'm grateful that I have the tools to learn this language. So, and then this one, also one of my favorites, and I heard this from Joe Franco a couple years ago, and she said that learning a new language is like unlocking a superpower. And I don't know a better way to say it. Like when you can speak another language, like the first point I said, you're unlocking a whole new world, a whole new culture, a whole new people. You can interact with people that you would have otherwise no business talking to before, or no way of even speaking to them if you wanted to before learning this language. And it's so cool that like if someone's lost, you can speak to them in their native language if they need help, or if you need help, you have more people that you can speak to. Books you can now read, YouTubers you can enjoy. It's like being a part of a secret club that like you cannot enter unless you know this password, but the password is the entire new language. This is so cool to me how, you know, if I didn't know this language, or if I wasn't interested in learning this language, then you're closed off to a whole group of people because you don't know this language. It's just cool to me how you can unlock this superpower. Like, I don't know, like I think too, and it maybe goes into with the whole confidence boost thing, because people think it's a lot harder than it is. It's definitely challenging, but like, you know, some people still have the narrative thinking that only babies can learn new languages and you can't learn new language as an adult. And so it does seem like a superpower, because for a lot of people, you're the outlier. Like, why can you do something that I was told can't be possible? So I don't know. I think it's a great way of looking at language learning. Yeah, I think that's everything. Those were the 5 negatives and 5 positives of the reality of learning a new language. If you enjoyed this, check out my language learning playlist. I have 2 videos so far about resources that you can use that are completely free to help you with learning a new language. And also have another video about easy ways to learn a new language, also for free. I'm all about that free. You can check those out if you want. If you made it this far, please let me know what language you're learning or what language you want to learn. But other than that, please leave a like as well. I know you like this video, so put that like up and subscribe, because I bet this isn't your first time here. So other than that, I'm gonna go eat some lunch and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.